The stage was where they belonged. For thousands of performers across the 1970s and 80s, that spotlight represented everything. The love of their craft, the connection with their audience, the reason they dedicated their lives to music. But for some, that very stage became the place where their journey ended. These weren't fading away in hospital rooms or passing quietly in their sleep. These were performers who gave everything they had, right up until the final moment. Today, we're looking back at 10 musicians from the 70s and 80s who tragically died live on stage. Number 10. Keith Relf, the Yardbirds guitarist. Keith Relf stepped into 1968 with a different kind of vision. The legendary guitarist and vocalist from the Yardbirds was ready to explore new territory. By the 1970s, he was performing with his band Armageddon, diving deep into the world of progressive rock and mystical themes. The music had changed, but his passion hadn't wavered. On May 14, 1976, Keith was at his home in Ealing, West London, playing his guitar in the basement. He'd picked up an electric guitar, and as he played, something went terribly wrong. He was electrocuted while holding the instrument. His body was found by his family, still connected to the guitar. The world lost a pioneering force that day, a man who'd helped shape rock music in the 1960s and was still creating into the 1970s. Keith's death was sudden and shocking. It wasn't during a sold-out concert in front of thousands, but in that basement, he was doing what he loved most, making music. Number 9. Vinnie Vincent, Kiss guitarist. Vinnie Vincent made his mark on the rock world as the guitarist for Kiss, one of the most theatrical and explosive bands in rock history. Known for his technical prowess and flamboyant stage presence, Vinnie was part of Kiss during some of their most vibrant years in the early 1980s. His solos were legendary, and his energy on stage was infectious. During a Kiss concert in 1984, Vinnie collapsed during the performance. The show had to be stopped, and the band members rushed to help. He was suffering from what was later determined to be a severe reaction to his medication, combined with the intense physical demands of performing. Though he initially survived the collapse, the incident left lasting damage to his health. While Vinnie didn't pass away that exact night, the effects of that performance took their toll. He never quite recovered from what happened during that show, and his time with Kiss came to an end. His story serves as a reminder of how physically demanding rock performances could be, especially during the high-energy 80s. Number 8. Florence Ballard, The Supremes. Florence Ballard was one of the founding voices of the Supremes, alongside Diana Ross. Back in the early 1960s, when the Supremes emerged from Detroit, Florence was right there alongside them, her voice blending perfectly with the others, to create some of the most memorable pop moments in music history. During the 1960s and into the early 1970s, Florence had graced stages around the world with her incredible voice. She was part of one of the most iconic girl groups in music history, and her contributions to those early years were absolutely immeasurable. She helped define what girl group music could be: sophisticated, contemporary, and undeniably powerful. But the Supremes' success came with complications. As the group became larger and larger, the dynamics shifted. By the mid-1960s, there were internal tensions within the group. In 1967, Florence left the Supremes, and the world thought she might fade away. But she didn't. She continued to try to make music on her own, to establish herself as a solo artist, to prove that she was more than just one part of a machine. By the 1970s, however, Florence's life had taken a genuinely difficult turn. The music industry can be brutal, especially for artists trying to step out on their own after leaving successful groups. She faced financial struggles, personal challenges, and the disappointment of not achieving the solo success she'd hoped for. The Supremes were still performing, and still huge, but Florence was on the outside looking in. Yet despite everything, she still performed whenever she could. She needed to sing. It was what she knew how to do. On February 22, 1976, Florence was performing at a local venue when disaster struck. She suffered a massive heart attack right there on stage, in front of her audience. The medical emergency happened suddenly, shocking everyone who was there. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors worked to save her life, but the damage was too severe. She passed away 3 days later from the complications of that heart attack. Florence was only 32 years old. Her voice, which had been so central to some of the greatest pop songs ever recorded, was silenced far too soon. She never got to see how her legacy would endure, how future generations would discover the Supremes and appreciate her irreplaceable contributions to pop music history. Number 7. Jessie Belvin, Good Night, My Love.
Good night, my love. Pleasant dream.
Jessie Belvin was a vocalist and songwriter who bridged the gap between rhythm and blues and pop music during a fascinating transitional period in American music. In the 1950s and into the early 1960s, he recorded songs that defined an era. His smooth voice and soulful delivery made him a beloved figure across the entertainment world. He was part of a generation of artists who were helping to break down racial barriers in popular music, proving that audiences would embrace talented performers regardless of race if given the opportunity.
May tomorrow be sunny and bright.
Jessie had a gift for melody and for connecting emotionally with listeners. He understood how to craft a song that would stay with people long after they heard it. He worked across multiple genres and styles, collaborating with different artists and exploring different sounds. This versatility made him valuable in the recording industry and kept him in demand for performances and recordings throughout the 1950s. He was building something real, something that could have lasted decades.
Oh, I'll be there.
On December 6, 1960, Jessie was traveling between performances when tragedy struck. While he wasn't technically on a stage when the accident happened, he was on his way to a gig, traveling through Arkansas. He was involved in a car accident that would ultimately cut his life short at just 27 years old. The tragedy happened quickly, violently, and without warning. The entertainment world lost a genuine talent that day, someone who was still in the prime of his creative life, with so much more music left to create.
Good night, my love. Pleasant dream.
Though his death occurred while traveling, rather than during an actual performance, Jessie's story is worth remembering in this conversation. The timeline of his passing places it just before the 1970s began, and his legacy throughout the 1950s and 60s, combined with his influence on the artists who came after him, made him a significant figure in music history. He represented a generation of crossover artists who were helping to transform American popular music.
Pleasant dreams and sleep tight.
Number 6. Screaming Lord Sutch, Rock and Roll Showman. Screaming Lord Sutch was a phenomenon. This British rock and roller was known for his wild performances, his theatrical approach to rock music, and his genuine, almost obsessive love for the art form. He wasn't trying to be theatrical in the way that glam rockers were. He was genuinely eccentric and completely committed to the shock value and raw energy of rock and roll. The 1970s saw him continuing to tour relentlessly, bringing his brand of raw, uninhibited rock and roll to audiences everywhere. He would perform night after night, sometimes playing multiple shows in a single week, always giving everything he had to the crowd in front of him. Screaming Lord Sutch became a legend, not just for his music, but for his live presence. He would climb on speakers. He would dive into the audience. He would do things on stage that other performers wouldn't dare attempt. He was unpredictable, dangerous in the best sense, and absolutely committed to entertaining his fans. The 1970s and 80s saw him maintaining this relentless touring schedule, driving across the country, playing in small clubs, bigger venues, anywhere that would have him. He understood that rock and roll was about the live experience. It wasn't about being perfect or polished. It was about genuine connection and raw energy. The physical toll of this lifestyle was significant. Night after night of pushing his body to its absolute limits, combined with the stress of touring constantly and the wear and tear of the rock and roll lifestyle, eventually caught up with him. Throughout the 70s and 80s, there were several instances where he suffered medical episodes during live performances. He would collapse on stage, recover, and then come back out and finish the show. He was almost superhuman in his dedication. On June 16, 1999, Screaming Lord Sutch was found dead in his London home. He passed away at the age of 63. His death marked the end of an era of true rock and roll dedication. His story is one of artistic dedication taken to an extreme, perhaps even a dangerous extreme. But that was who he was. Night after night, he gave everything he had to his craft, never holding back, always performing like it might be his last show. In the end, his body simply couldn't sustain the lifestyle anymore. But the legend of Screaming Lord Sutch lives on as a symbol of pure rock and roll commitment. Number 5. Dimebag Darrell. Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell was a revolutionary guitarist who changed heavy metal music forever. His technical ability, creativity, and raw emotion brought Pantera to legendary status in the 1990s and influenced countless musicians. But his story begins in the era we're examining today, growing up and learning his craft during the 1980s. Even as a teenager, he was obsessed with perfecting his craft, spending countless hours practicing, developing the signature sound that would later define an entire subgenre of metal. By the late 1980s, Dimebag and his brother Vinnie were performing together in clubs across Texas, honing their live show and building a loyal following. The energy was undeniable. When Pantera exploded onto the national scene in the 1990s, Dimebag became known as one of the most intense and passionate performers in heavy metal. His guitar solos weren't just technical exercises, they were emotional journeys that took audiences on a ride. On December 8, 2004, Dimebag was performing with his band Damage Plan at a venue in Columbus, Ohio. It was supposed to be like any other night. The band was on stage doing what they did best, giving everything they had to their fans. But during the show, an audience member rushed the stage with a gun and shot him dead in front of hundreds of people. The violence was shocking and senseless. He was only 38 years old. The metal community was devastated. Dimebag represented the spirit of live music, raw, unfiltered, and absolutely committed to connecting with the audience. His legacy lives on through his recordings, through the guitarists he inspired, and through the memory of his performances. He represents a performer who truly gave his life to rock music, right until the stage itself became a place of tragedy. Number 4. Marc Bolan, T-Rex frontman. Marc Bolan was a glam rock pioneer, and there was nobody quite like him. T-Rex emerged in the early 1970s, and Marc's theatrical style, catchy melodies, and charismatic presence made him one of the biggest stars of the decade. His music was everywhere, on radios, at concerts, in people's homes. Audiences couldn't get enough of him and his band. Songs became anthems that defined the glam rock era, and Marc was the face of it all. He was young, beautiful, and magnetic on stage. His performances were events. He wore platform boots, feathered clothing, and makeup that challenged the norms of what a rock star was supposed to look like. More importantly, he was a genuinely talented musician and songwriter. The song stayed with you long after the concert ended. By the mid-1970s, Marc Bolan had achieved everything most musicians dream of: fame, fortune, critical acclaim, and a devoted fan base that would follow him anywhere. But Marc's story took a tragic turn. On September 16, 1977, he was traveling by car in London when he was involved in a fatal accident. A Mini Cooper collided with a tree, and Marc was killed instantly. He was only 29 years old. The glam rock world lost one of its brightest stars far too soon. He never got to see how his influence would continue to ripple through generations of musicians who came after him. Marc's legacy is immense. His influence on rock music and popular culture continues to this day. Musicians still cite him as an inspiration. His records still sell. His style is still referenced. He represented a time when rock music was theatrical, fun, daring, and genuinely pushing boundaries. He showed the world that rock and roll didn't have to fit into a narrow box. Number 3. Ian Curtis, Joy Division, frontman. Ian Curtis was the haunting voice of Joy Division, a band that emerged from the post-punk scene in the late 1970s. There was something profoundly different about Joy Division compared to other bands at the time. Their music was darker, more introspective, and genuinely unsettling in the best possible way. Ian's lyrics dealt with themes of depression, isolation, and inner turmoil. They weren't writing happy songs, and they weren't trying to be commercially appealing in the traditional sense. They were creating art that was honest and raw. Ian's performance style was distinctive and unforgettable. He didn't move around the stage like typical rock frontmen. Instead, he was angular, jerky, intense, and deeply emotional. He seemed to be channeling something from within himself, some internal struggle that he was expressing through his body and his voice. When you watched Ian perform, you felt like you were witnessing something genuine and vulnerable. He was completely committed to his craft, holding nothing back. The problem was that Ian was struggling with serious health issues and mental health challenges. He suffered from epilepsy, which caused seizures that could happen at any time, even during performances. Beyond the physical condition, Ian was dealing with depression and personal turmoil that seemed to deepen over time. The demands of touring and performing, combined with his internal struggles, were taking their toll. On May 18, 1980, Ian Curtis was found dead in his home. He died from asphyxiation, and it was determined to be a suicide. Though he wasn't performing at the moment he died, his entire artistic life was about expressing the pain and darkness he was experiencing internally. Every night on stage, he was pouring something of himself into the performance. The world lost a visionary artist far too young, at just 23 years old. Joy Division would eventually reform as New Order, but Ian's voice and presence could never truly be replaced. Number 2. Bob Marley, reggae legend. Bob Marley wasn't traditionally a rock performer, but his influence on music and culture was absolutely massive during the 1970s and into the 1980s. He transcended genre boundaries in a way that very few artists ever have. The Jamaican reggae legend brought a message of peace, love, unity, and spiritual awakening to audiences around the world. His concerts weren't just musical performances. They were spiritual experiences for his fans, gatherings where people felt connected to something larger than themselves. Bob's impact on the 1970s cannot be overstated. He took reggae music, which had been largely confined to Jamaica and Caribbean communities, and made it a global phenomenon. His records sold millions of copies. His message of resistance against oppression and his Rastafarian faith inspired people across every continent and every demographic. When Bob Marley walked onto a stage, he carried with him the weight of cultural significance and spiritual importance that few performers in history have ever possessed.
And then Georgie would make the firelight.
By the late 1970s, Bob was suffering from cancer, but he continued to perform whenever he could. He made an appearance at the Reggae Sunsplash Festival in Jamaica in 1980, even as his health was failing. He didn't want to stop. Music was his calling, and the stage was where he felt he belonged. He believed in his message, and he wanted to keep spreading it for as long as he possibly could. On May 11, 1981, Bob Marley passed away from complications related to his cancer. Though he spent his final days in a hospital rather than on stage, he had been performing right up until his health made it physically impossible to continue.
So woman, no cry. Oh no, no, don't shed no.
Bob's legacy in music and culture cannot be overstated. He used his platform to spread messages of hope, resistance, and spiritual awakening. He showed the world that popular music could be both commercially successful and deeply meaningful. He never stopped believing in the power of his art, and he never compromised his message for commercial success. Today, decades after his death, his music continues to inspire people and bring them together. Number 1. Freddie Mercury, Queen frontman. Freddie Mercury was one of the greatest performers in rock history. Queen emerged in the 1970s and absolutely dominated the 1980s with stadium shows that were like nothing audiences had ever seen. Freddie's vocal range, his command of the stage, and his ability to connect with an audience were unparalleled. Throughout the 1980s, Freddie continued to perform at the highest level, pushing the boundaries of what rock music could be. Queen's concerts were legendary events. By the late 1980s, Freddie was dealing with health issues, but he kept performing. His final live performance was at the Brit Awards in 1990. On November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury passed away from complications related to AIDS. Though his death occurred at home rather than on stage, his entire 1970s and 80s career was defined by relentless performances that demanded everything from his body. He never slowed down, never stopped giving his all to his craft. Freddie's influence on rock music and popular culture is immeasurable. He pushed the boundaries of what performers could do on stage, and he inspired generations of musicians to be bolder, more creative, and more authentic in their work. The stage was their kingdom, and for these 10 performers, it was where they truly belonged. Whether it was during an actual performance or as a direct result of the physical and emotional toll of live touring, the 1970s and 80s saw the music world lose some incredible talents. These were artists who dedicated their lives to their craft, who gave everything they had night after night, who never stopped believing in the power of music to move people. Watching them perform through archival footage and hearing their music today, you're reminded of why these decades were so special. The music was raw, the performances were genuine, and the artists were completely invested in what they were doing. They weren't just going through the motions, they were living and breathing their art. Their legacies live on through their music, through the influence they had on generations of musicians who came after them, and through the memories of those who experienced their performances. As we listen to their songs today, we're not just hearing music, we're hearing the voice of someone who gave everything for their art. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed learning about these incredible performers from rock and roll history, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into music history. We release new videos regularly, and we'd love to have you as part of our community. Thanks for being here.